Listen, if you are somebody who's being sent this video or this audio directly, it is because I care about you, and it's because I want you to understand my mindset about this whole thing, and I want to get my thoughts out all at once without interruption or having to defend very stupid throwaway arguments or what have you, or get lost in rhetoric or partisan politics. I want to talk about people and just humanity, the human nature of it all. Just kind of get at the kind of root cause of a lot of things that are bugging me, because I feel like that we get into our camps and we dig our heels in, and a lot of the humanity is lost in this whole ordeal. I'm recording this 11/10/2024. This is the Sunday after the election. Obviously, I was not necessarily happy about the results of the election, but I said the night before that we're lucky enough to where we can choose our leadership and the path we want our country to take. And even if we do lose that ability, which I doubt we will, at least I think it's irrational to think that we would, but even to say if we do lose it, we will have made the choice to have lost it. And I think there's some power in that in of itself. To those who would say, how could we ever lose it though? Remember, there was a time where Putin was directly elected, and Putin was elected in an election that wasn't rigged. So it can change. Remember, it can always change. But that being said, I want to take a step back and talk about something that I experienced recently that did a lot for me as a human being, as a person. About 2-3 days before the election, I had noticed that somebody who I was acquainted with had a bunch of Trump stuff plastered all over their profile. And, it kind of took me aback because they've always been loving, kind, caring, very pro-minority, very, they always looked out for me. I never had a problem with them. And I asked them, I was like, hey, why do you like Trump? And they kind of proceeded to go on this long-winded list of things that, for the record, I said, I appreciate you being decent and breaking the stereotype before I said anything else. And they proceeded to go on this long-winded list of things that they disagreed with Trump on, seemingly trying to make me comfortable, but it also seemed to be true held belief for them. So I'm sitting there thinking, well then, you obviously didn't vote for him, right? That was simply not the case. They said they had already voted for him, and when I asked them why, they cited the whole war in, what was it, Israel? Or was it both of them? The Israel-Palestine war and the war in Ukraine. And basically kind of alluded to the Cheney family being a bunch of war hawks. And any candidate being backed by a Cheney probably is going to be pro-war. And I was kind of just like, okay, valid, understand that. But by the flip side of the coin, right? She also said in the same breath, like, I don't think Trump wants, I think Trump believes in the three exceptions with the whole Roe v. Wade thing, so forth and so on. And, I said to her, I was like, we're 3 days out from an election. He's going to say whatever he can to get you to agree with him and vote for him. And by you, I mean anybody. Like, he's going to change up his story every 2 seconds just so that he can get as many votes as possible. I mean, it's something that we well know now. A candidate in either party will go to its party's extremes, pivot towards the center towards the end of the race, or getting close to the end of the race, and kind of just politically maneuver to try and, get as many votes as they possibly can. This is partisan politics in America. This is our norms with elections. And I was like, if you can apply a healthy amount of skepticism to Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney backing Kamala Harris, you can put a healthy amount of skepticism into the words coming out of Donald Trump's mouth. I don't see that being such a big stretch, right? That shouldn't be a big ask. But in the interaction, it humanized the issue. Because I don't know about you all, but I had gotten so far, even for being a caring, compassionate, liberal, I had gotten so deep entrenched in my side of things that I began to make a lot of assumptions, sweeping assumptions, which is not a healthy thing in life. But you also can't say that I lived in my own democratic bubble. I go to church with conservatives. I live in a town, in a county that is very conservative. My neighbors are, by and large, conservative. So it's not like I don't know decent people who are conservative, but those are the people I know in my daily life. Those aren't the people on the internet. Those are the people in my neighborhood. You know what I mean? And by and large, honestly, a lot of the people in my neighborhood aren't the nicest, but I digress. I have my neighbor across the street who is absolutely awesome. I just talked to him this afternoon. And he was asking me about college and how things were going for me, how my life was going. And he didn't have to do that. And we were just out getting the mail. And I'm fairly certain I don't know that he voted for Trump, but I'm pretty sure he's a conservative. And, so it's not like I'm necessarily assuming every conservative I run up on, is going to be an awful human being, but it just seems to be the majority of what you see. And, well, the election rolled around. I was, like a lot of people, fairly certain that Kamala had it in a bag. And I'll explain why in a little bit, but I had, the same notions a lot of other people did. Surely people there aren't enough people who like what Trump is selling for him to get back in office. And so I would pendulum swing from confidence to anxiety, back to confidence to anxiety. And I did that from about the time the polls closed in my state, so around 7 p.m. Central Time, to 5 o'clock, 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, when the Associated Press called the race for Donald John Trump. And I've never felt a bigger wave of relief, honestly. And it wasn't because I liked the outcome, but it was just the tension could be let go. We knew certainly what was going to happen. We knew what we were getting ourselves into. Like it or not, the certainty was comforting. The uncertainty was keeping me awake and giving me, screwing with my breathing and so forth and so on. But, it was over with. I wasn't happy about the end result, but, this is the card we've been dealt. It's not like we don't have options to maneuver around it or just completely get out of Dodge if that's our bag. But that's not everybody's, that's not everybody's option. Not everybody is fortunate enough to have that option. Yeah, so, I wasn't happy with the result of the election. That's obvious. And there was kind of one general principle that kind of perplexed me continuously. I want to play a clip that summarizes everything I feel very briefly and succinctly. So I'm going to put that here.
Well, it's 2 days after the election, and yesterday I had a really hard time trying to pinpoint why I don't think I've ever felt more heartbroken and hopeless as I do now. There have been a lot of times in my life when I've been disappointed, when I've been depressed, when I've been angry, but I have never felt these things to the depth that I felt yesterday. But I gave it some thought, and I think I figured it out. The reason I'm so heartbroken, destroyed, and absolutely disgusted with the results of this election is that it invalidates everything I have ever been taught about how I should live my life and everything I've tried to teach my kids. So it's an absolute betrayal to realize at 57 years of age that when it comes really down to it, over half of this country really doesn't value the notions of being kind, being generous, loving your neighbor, being accepting, having empathy, showing understanding, being truthful, being ethical in business, being sensible and level-headed, not being a bully, not being selfish, and not being a total asshole. And because I've been taught these things my entire life, it's really easy for me to see that Donald Trump is a vile and despicable human being. He exhibits everything that I have been taught to set my sights against in order to be a good, functioning member of society. But now, over half our country supports this person and believes that he's the one who's going to make America great. Well, hey, here's a secret. Someone who has worked so hard at sowing discord is never going to do anything to unite us. That's his big lie, because he doesn't benefit from Americans coming together. He and all the Tucker Carlsons and Alex Jones out there, they profit from the rage that they're able to manufacture. So don't tell me it's okay if we disagree, as if this is akin to our individual preferences for wine or toilet paper. This is not a simple disagreement. This is you telling me that the values I've held dear my entire life have no meaning or place in the real world. This is you telling me that I should be shrewd, deceptive, cruel, and intolerant. This is you telling me that the type of person you really admire and look up to is a rich, entitled, narcissistic, criminally convicted pussy grabber. And if you're one of those guys out there that likes Trump because, well, he says what's on his mind, he tells it like he sees it, he doesn't have a filter. Yeah, sometimes you need a filter. There was a time, not that long ago, when being an asshole wasn't cool. If you were a shitty person, you just kept a lot of that to yourself, and society was all the better for it. But now it's all, let's make America great again. And what I'd like to know is, what specific time in American history are you talking about? What year exactly? Because for a lot of folks, this right now, this current time in American history is the greatest. And you know that. And for some reason, you don't like it. It's like this crazy idea that giving certain rights to someone else somehow takes some of yours away. Or are you just pissed that you're not special anymore? And so you can feel special again, you'll be more than happy to drag us all back 70 years when our black brothers and sisters had to drink from separate water fountains, or back when if you were non-straight, you had to stay in the closet. Personally, I'd like to go back to a time when assholes had to stay in the closet. And don't tell me, oh, don't be stupid, you're getting it all wrong. It's really about none of that. It's really about the economy. As if that excuses the behavior. You're willing to overlook all the other fascist rhetoric because all that's doing is showing your wives and your daughters and minorities and LGBTQ and other marginalized groups that you're completely willing to throw them under the bus as long as you can save 5 cents a gallon on gasoline. Did your stock portfolio get a bump yesterday? Well, good for you. Maybe you can sit offshore on your new boat and watch this country burn to the ground. The reality is that as a country, we have the opportunity to take the high road, to stand for something higher than our basest instincts, to stand for equality and fairness, to stand for the overall good of everyone. But over half of y'all kept us from taking it. And the whole world was watching. And you know who else was watching? Your non-white friends, your non-straight friends, your wives, your kids, your daughters. So to anyone who actually does claim to value those higher ideals, you know, the ones I mentioned earlier, the ones we were taught as kids in Sunday school. Yeah, Christians, remember Sunday school? If you claim to hold any of those same values, but are at the very same time enamored with Trump and perfectly pleased with the outcome of the election, me and millions like me deserve a fucking explanation.
And honestly, this is what I can't get over. This is why it's a big thing for me, because a lot of people, will act like, well, why does it matter? He's just going to be another president, or this doesn't mean anything, or what have you. And I'm like, how can you say that? How can you possibly say that? Like, by and large, this guy is just awful out loud, and, you're okay with it because your eggs will be a few cents cheaper. I'm like, yeah, great, sure, whatever. Like, don't get me wrong, the average person does not directly feel the effects of Bidenomics. It's not a consumer-based economic plan that will make the average person's pockets feel better. I'm not here to try and sell you on the fact that Biden had the best economy ever for the average person. It might have been the best on paper, but a lot of people weren't feeling that. However, I don't see how you could think that Donald Trump is going to give you a better one.
I've been now around long. I think of myself as a young guy, but I'm not so young anymore. And I've been around for a long time. And it just seems that the economy does better under the Democrats than the Republicans. Now, it shouldn't be that way. But if you go back, it just seems that the economy does better under the Democrats
well,
than the
Republicans. It certainly did well under Clinton.
Well,
but I wouldn't suggest it was so great under Jimmy Carter.
That's true. That's
if
true.
you remember
That's
the interest
true.
rates.
No, I know. It's Jimmy Carter was not in the same thing. But certainly we had some very good economies under Democrats as well as Republicans. But we've had some pretty bad disaster under the Republicans.
But even, if you want to put that aside, my thing is this. I'll agree with you. Sure, fine. Let's just say, for sake of argument, Donald Trump would give us the best economy ever. At what cost? Because I don't know if you've cracked open Project 2025, and I have. And while it's not entirely what the media makes it out to be, it's still not good for anybody who's a minority. Those of you who love me, those of you who have friends who are LGBTQ, whatever, the whole Project 2025 thing equates being trans with pornography. And I want to say pedophilia. I'll try and throw something on the screen, a quote on the screen, but I've went and I've looked and I've done the research for myself, and you can read it for yourself too if you like. But, there's things that got misconstrued. Like Tim Walz kept talking about how they want to record your, healthcare, a record of your pregnancies. That's not the case. The project calls for a record of miscarriages and abortions that are statistically, I think from what the book said, already required in some states. But, so, like I said, media twisting things. Sure, 110%. Maybe it's not as bad as it seems. But it's still awful. They still want to roll everything back. They want to take us backwards. Sure, you might not be drinking out of two different water fountains. Project 2025 would exempt entities such as religious colleges, employers, and healthcare providers from anti-discrimination laws that seek to regulate gender and family policies based on conservative religious perspective. It's plain and simple in the text. They're calling all of this DEI. It's like all of this DEI stuff or whatever. We just want to get rid of it. And maybe there's some stuff that is purely stupid and that needs to be ripped out. Fine, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, but they want to take such a big sledgehammer to it all that a lot of people are going to have their lives upended in the crossfire. Because if you make it easier for people to discriminate in specific instances, you make it easier for everybody to be discriminated against. You erode at the protections, and once you erode the protections, it all goes downhill from there. But getting off my soapbox with that, I don't think it's going to go to the point of us drinking out of different water fountains, But HRT, that'll probably be criminalized too, given what the document says. But you say that you care about us and you say that you love us. The two can't exist at the same time. The two can't be true. And furthermore, there are some of you that were flirting with being pro-Trump or questioning Kamala to all hell to the point where you weren't even giving her a fair shake. Well, now you're going to end up in a situation where you're going to be hurt yourself. Because some of you who were hemming and hawing about all of this are queer. You're black. Some of you. I just don't understand it. I can't wrap my head around it. And frankly, I don't know what lengths they're going to go to try and hurt content creators like me. Because the fact of the matter is, they're saying that being trans is equated with being a pedophile, and they will create legislation to deal with such matters. And if they can use the Patriot Act or some wiggle room like the Patriot Act to go and say, oh, well, we're trying to look for the bad guy, we're trying to find the pedophiles and weed them out. At that point, your civil liberties, your protections or whatever, your privacy, it doesn't exist anymore. If they can get into your doctor's offices and all of this, if they want a record of your abortions and so forth and so on, then who's to say they won't want a record of trans people or queer people generally? Who's to say they won't want to start trying to monitor different people who don't fit their box of what's normal? And again, normally I'd be like, this is hyperbole, we should not entertain such things. But when you're suggesting doing them in smaller places, or I wouldn't even say smaller, but different places that don't pertain to me, I think the adage is simple. First they came for the Jews, and I did not say anything because I'm not a Jew. Then they came for me and I was boned. You know what I mean? Like, we gotta be smart about this. But again, I go back to this. The people in my life will say, we love you, we support you, we care about you. We don't want your existence criminalized. We don't want you to have to worry about these things. We don't want you to have to worry about whether or not you'll be able to marry the person you love in 4 or 5 years. You know? But at the same time, you either voted for him or stayed home and did nothing. And gaslighting me after the fact about my intentions or saying that my worry is not well founded, you don't care about me, truly. I cannot think to myself that you care about me. And here's my thing, right? Because AOC and a lot of other people have been saying we need to make space for people. And yes, absolutely, we need to make space for people. We need to have enough room for people to talk and kind of hash out their differences. I'm going to be trying to create spaces to do that are simultaneously, or maybe 2 separate spaces, but another space that's also just a safe place for people to get rest from it all. But the whole thing with making space is it's a two-way street. The expectation is always on decent people to make space for shitty people. That feels rather backwards in my book. Don't get me wrong. Every fiber of my being wants to make space for those who voted for him. Every fiber of my being wants people to have the chance to get out of their bubbles and talk about things. Talk about what's bothering them, what's worrying them, what's giving them heartache, even if I don't agree with them. But the fact of the matter is there's only so far we can get past the point of you're okay with the hate, with the reversal of rights, to the point where I can't help but think that you're a lost cause. And honestly, the main thing that scares me is they've already ruled that Donald Trump could basically be legally immune so long as he's acting within his official capacity. They've already placed the presidency above the law no matter who is sitting in that office. That's not good. And that's unprecedented. It sounds like something out of a movie, doesn't it? It sounds like hyperbole. But it's currently it's the factual truth. That's how the Supreme Court ruled. So here's my thing. Don't gaslight me. Don't sit here and tell me that I'm freaking out for no reason. Don't tell me that potentially deleting my YouTube account is an irrational course of action. I'm not going to, but am I contemplating it? Yeah. Because I don't know if come January 20th, I'm going to live in an America where it's safe enough for me to openly express myself. And that's worrying. That's really worrying. But my general plea to you is this. If you care about me, if you care about anybody else in your life like me, get active. Try to do things to help. Put your money where your mouth is. Try to actually be the change you want to see. A lot of this came out of a desire to get away from the establishment, to try and dawn a new age in American politics where the government actually worked for the people. In that aspect, I am proud of my country. I'm proud of, for better or worse, if it's how things actually shook out, I'm proud of Gen Z basically freaking kamikazing the entire country. Because maybe, just maybe, after weeping endureth for a night, joy might cometh in the morning. And that's honestly how we make a more perfect union. I just worry that I just hope that there will be a union left by the end of it. Or I should say a republic. We really need to get better about being a republic. And the textbook definition of a republic is, if you don't know, is a country that directly elects its officials. With the Electoral College existing, we don't directly elect our officials. But to quote Ben Franklin, we can have a republic if we can keep it. When asked if we had a, I'm gonna butcher the quote. Well, it was what, a democracy or a republic? I forget which. It was one option, it was A or B, and B was a republic. And Ben Franklin said a republic if we can keep it. That's ultimately what we have to do. Try to fight to keep it. You know, that's all we can do at this point. So anyways, to those of you who are reeling with, election depression, I see you. I care about you. And I'm begging you, don't make any hasty decisions. Especially permanent decisions. Because one of the things I fear with all of this, whether he actually enacts his evil plan or not, the perception of the potential for things to get worse for trans people in this country. I'm worried that the trans suicide rates are going to skyrocket. I'm worried that the queer suicide rates are going to skyrocket. I'm worried that the general depression rates are going to go up. Because this is the choice that we made. Just try and hold on. I promise I'm here. I'm going to try and do my best to try and keep spaces open for you to express yourself, to have a safe place. Even if I don't necessarily understand. Know you're loved. Know it's going to be okay. And remember, the other side felt a lot like you last go around. So try to hold out some compassion. I love you guys. I never thought I would say this and mean it so deeply, but stay queer, quirky, nerdy, be you. Be your own guide. Follow your own movement. Take care. And game on.